the Capital PTBO Sports Show on your TV, Peterborough, Lindsay. Also, wherever you do your podcast downloading, available on all social media channels as well, produced by MNC Podcast Productions. I'm your host, Jordan Mercier, alongside my main man, Mark Million, and producer Maddie over there as well. You can find us if you want to come and watch a live version of the program. We are at either 370 or 372 George Street. So, Mark, we were talking beforehand because I've been saying 370. Somehow it caught my attention. You referred to it as 372, so I thought I was plugging the wrong address. Turns out it's all one and the same.
Yeah, so the space that we're in used to be two storefronts. So the studio side is 370. The door side is 372. So, like for hydro purposes and Bell Canada and these sorts of guys, we say 372 because that's the side the door is on. But otherwise, if you find either 370 or 372, you'll find us. And you'll be happily entertained either way.
We'll be there no matter what. Maddie, what's going on there, producer?
Google says 370, and so does our graphic, which is why I put it on the graphic, because I trust Google.
You don't have to, well, that might be a steep slope. I'm not sure about trusting Google, but you don't have to explain it to us, Latour. You screwed it up.
Hey, whoa. Easy now.
Easy now.
You can always find us at thecapitalptbo.ca.
Correct.
Online
We're there.
orders, of course. Gentlemen, we got a very busy program coming up. We've got a bunch of emails we got to get to. We've got hockey talk. We've got lacrosse. We've got the U.S. Open. We've got fair or foul, and we have the, what were we calling it? Not the Way Back Wednesday quiz.
Yeah, not the Wonderful Wednesday quiz.
Not the Wonderful World of Wednesday. It is the Way Back Wednesday quiz.
Yeah.
Stanley Cup final.
Oh, yeah.
Isolated to the Stanley Cup final because it is that time of the year where the Stanley Cup final is being played. It's between the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Let me give you this one. What would you suggest is the better storyline here? 3 consecutive Stanley Cups or the beginning of a potential run for the Colorado Avalanche? Which one of those would you prefer to sprinkle on your chicken?
I'm not a huge believer in Colorado's got a run in them like Tampa Bay. I mean, this happens once in a generation.
Yep.
Right? So to say that you're watching the modern day Edmonton Oilers in Tampa Bay or New York Islanders, and Colorado's on the verge of becoming the 80s Oilers.
You're not there.
No, I'm not there. I think there's a few things. I think that Western Conference, I think there's a couple of studs in the Heat. I think Edmonton's a goaltender away and maybe like a steady D-man away from being a contender. I think there's always going to be a couple of perennial sort of, maybe St. Louis could get gritty. Anyhow, for me, I like the idea of the 3 in a row. Like, I hope they do it. And I hope it's entertaining. But, and I'm on record as as giving Latour the gears about Vasilevsky. But, I mean, if the kid wins 3 before he's 30, holy smokes. Like, I think I'm not ready to put him on the Rushmore yet. But that's special. That's hollowed territory.
Especially maybe the back-to-back Conn Smythe trophies because he would be 1 or 1A when it comes to Tampa Bay. Kucherov would be kind of the other one who's floating around.
How about this just quickly? Why can't we if Makar scores 10 points here in the final, and they go down in 6, he scores 10, 11, 12 points, he gets himself to 35. Can we have a discussion about finally having a losing player win the Conn? Like, it hasn't happened since 87.
Jean-Sébastien Giguère.
Oh, that's right. Giguère
03.
did. That's right, 03. I'm thinking Ronnie Hextall in 87.
However, you bring up an interesting point because I noticed because you're super smart, said 6 games. I think you get to 7 games. Now writers are a little bit more apt to maybe go in one way or the other.
Yeah.
The only time in my mind, and I'm going to guess the only time it's ever happened, Reggie Leach won the Conn Smythe Trophy on a Flyers team that got swept in the final.
Correct.
But, of course, he set the goal record, which has since been tied by Yari Curry. But he did something just out of this world.
Yeah.
I agree that there's probably a conversation to be had about that. Maddie, what storyline intrigues you most about this Stanley Cup final?
So it's neither of the ones we've talked about yet. I've got 2. Corey Perry maybe losing his 3rd straight final with a 3rd different team. Because I know Hossa lost back-to-back with Pittsburgh and Detroit.
He went from Pittsburgh, who lost to Detroit, who lost to Pittsburgh.
And then he won it with Chicago the 3rd year.
Yes.
Right. So that, it would be, he's won a cup, so I don't feel that bad if it happens to him. It's not like it's a guy chasing his first cup at, however old he is, 38. But Pat Maroon, come on. A chance for a 4th straight Stanley Cup and a 16th straight series win.
I was shocked when I was reading that 4 people have actually done the 4 straight with multiple teams. I think this might be the first time. No, I guess he's only done it, right, Tampa Bay and then St. Louis, right, in 2019. Yeah. I'd be willing to bet most of those were probably original 6-era type teams.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Yeah.
But
both of those are weird oddities. There's no doubt about it. I go back to what you said, Mark, and for some reason I'm having trouble with this. And I don't know if it's because I've got Tampa Bay fatigue. I don't know if it's because now Tampa Bay is a bit of a division rival with the team I cheer for. Because in my head, I'm thinking, well, as a Red Wing fan, there should be no circumstance in which I cheer for Colorado ever. We talked about this last week. I feel like rivalries can be a snapshot in time, and I don't know if it needs to be in perpetuity, forever.
Right.
Because there's a lot of players on Colorado I really like. Cale Makar, you mentioned Nathan McKinnon, I really like. But for some reason, I'm like, yeah, I like to see history made, but only if it's like my team doing it. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to see Colorado or Tampa Bay win 3 straight Stanley Cups. It is something that I didn't think I would see.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already seen some scuttle online, and I'm sure we'll get there as they get closer to the finish line if they do it, where it's 3 in a row. One of them's a bubble. The second one, Montreal, right? They can only have 3,000 in the build. It's just different. It's different. The conferences were realigned, and so there is weirdness, but I still think salary cap era, what they've been able to do, has been the most impressive franchise run of since 2005. I think that's pretty indisputable.
You've had in the 3 years that Tampa's run to the Roses here, you've had 70% of the same teams make it every single year.
Mm-hmm.
Still only one in 2020, still only one in 2021, still only one in 2022 that's managed to get to the finals here. So I'm not a big believer in the bubble thing. I know I get that with LeBron too, but 20 Lakers.
Fake championship. Yeah.
So I don't buy that for a second. I think that's ridiculous.
I think it's okay to acknowledge that they had unique circumstances.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So it's kind of like the 99 Spurs. When people looked at the 99 Spurs, if they had been a one and done, they'd be like, you won in a strikeout shortened year, and that's just the way it is. And now they followed it up and won in 03 and 05 and 07 and whatever. So they were basically validated it. But I remember the conversation around that time being like, does this mean as much as like full bore? I mean, if you're Tampa Bay, you can only win what's in front of you. You have no control over the state of the world or
I still think the bubble
bubbles.
And the bubble stuff has been beaten to death by now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think playing in a bubble might almost be harder because you're never playing in front of an away crowd, but you're never playing with home ice either.
That's true.
Here's the ultimate for me: the Houston Rockets NBA titles.
Yep.
If Michael's dad doesn't get killed, and Mike doesn't go to baseball, do they win 8 straight? Nobody validates or unvalidates Houston while you didn't play with Michael, because Michael would have cleaned the floor with Orlando, right, with Shaq and Penny and the other kids that were there. They wouldn't have had it. And the Houston, him and Hakeem and Glide and all these guys, they were beauties. Chicago would have smoked that. So nobody does that. So nobody get me out of me about the Lakers in 20.
97 was the, hey, we almost got the Rockets and Bulls. And then, okay, we'll see what's up. But then the Jazz managed to get past the Rockets in that one.
Right.
Okay, here's a question for you. And Matt, I'll start with you. Who is the best player in this series? Boy, you got a lot to pick from here.
Oh, yeah.
Who is the best hockey player in this series?
So goalies excluded?
No, include them.
I mean, I'm a Vasilevsky guy.
Darcy
guy.
Kemper?
Not Darcy Kemper. I'm a Vasilevsky guy, but if I had to pick like a skater, I think it's between Cale Makar and Nikita Kucherov. Because what Kucherov's done the last couple of years has been incredible. And Cale Makar, what he's doing right now is insane. Yeah, one Vasilevsky for me.
You're taking one. You're starting a team. Let's go.
Vasilevsky.
Is it Vasilevsky?
Yeah. Because
Okay.
I've learned as a Montreal Canadiens fan, you can still make the final with just goaltending.
You can't win it, but you can make
You can
the
make
final.
it there. You can have some fun.
I think if I'm going to go on that side of the ledger of your point of you're starting a team, I think I go with Makar or I go with McKinnon. Because Vasilevsky at 29 if I'm starting that way, if I'm going with a franchise guy. There's something underwhelming about Nate, though. No? He's got 24 points.
Well,
he's got 16 points.
He's, 27 years old now? Like, it's not like he's on the right side of 25 to build a team around.
Yeah, I thought he was 25. But anyways, there's something, it's not him. He's not the show horse here. Like, he's one of the horses. In the same way that Tampa, really, the show horse, is Vasilevsky the superstar on that team? Is Stamkos the superstar? Is it Kucherov? Is it Hedman? Is it kind of like all the above type
Braden
thing?
Point, yeah. There's a lot of guys to pick from.
Braden Point has 60 points. He has 30 goals in the last 3 Stanley Cup seasons. 60 playoff points. That's a career for some dudes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, Braden Point's getting paid when that time comes. Okay, superstar for me, I'd still take Makar because points from a defenseman are ultra hard to come by.
Oh, this one's hard because really in my opinion, there's 5. Have we even mentioned Victor Hedman, who, if we had this chat, I think he's been back. I think he's going to be one of those players that it comes out after the playoffs that he's playing with like a hernia or something like that. Because I think he's been a little bit off, but he's still really, really good. Difficult to go against Makar in the moment.
Yeah.
But when I watch the games, and I'm verifying this just on my eye test, I feel like an engaged Nikita Kucherov is still the one that I look for.
He's still the most terrifying guy on the ice.
When he wants the puck, you're not getting it.
No.
Like that's the terrifying thing about that guy.
When he has his dancing shoes on,
Oof.
and I think he's fairly consistent, so I'm not saying that he dogs it, but when you can almost tell in the first 3-4 shifts, he slows the game down.
Yeah.
You can run at him all game. He's one of those players who has the ability to shift, so you're not really tagging him with any sort of contact of consequence. So Makar's trendy. I would go Kucherov in this one. And I think Kucherov, I mean, he's missed a lot of time the last couple of years in terms of the regular season. So I feel like there's gas in the tank here.
Has Kucherov got a Yager vibe to him? I mean, like a guy that could late in his career still be that sort of...
If he wants to?
Yeah.
Yeah. I said that he's what Pavel Datsyuk would have been if he had played for another coach.
Right.
That Mike Babcock obviously demanded 200-foot. Pavel, I want you to score 100 points, but also win the Selke type guy.
Right.
He's what Alex Kovalev
rare.
would have been if he cared.
Alex Kovalev would be another one. Yeah,
that's true, actually. Kovalev's hands were unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And the caveat there was, the inconsistency where for 3 games in a row, he's the most spectacular thing you've ever seen, and then he sort of disappears for 2 weeks. Stefan Richer used to have vibes like that, too.
Yep.
He would score 50, and then the next year, like 20, and then back up to 50, and then... so that's interesting. But the fact that we have that many players factoring in this conversation, I think is considerably incredible, and it sort of relays me into my next one. Right now, going into the final, I think you both have stated a case for Cale Makar. He is the betting line favorite, according to Bodog, for the Conn Smythe Trophy. Number 2 would be Nate McKinnon. So that tells me that betting favorites at least are leaning towards the Colorado Avalanche. I couldn't believe the most bet upon series conclusion here would be Colorado in 5 games.
Yeah.
Which is disrespectful to the champs. I think Colorado's going to win, but I think you're not beating this Tampa Bay team in 5 games.
I know. That was surprising. Yeah. Actually shocking.
Is it maybe just a fatigue thing?
I don't know. Maybe you're counting on that?
Yeah.
Tampa Bay's had, a 7, a 4, and a 6, and the Avalanche were 12-2.
I don't know. Yeah. Vegas is a funny animal, though, right? Like they're like David Copperfield. They want you to look over here while they're doing this over here.
It's a perception of public opinion,
100% it is, right? So if the thought is Colorado in 5, obviously the juice is on the other side to think, you know what? I'll take the conventional or the unconventional Vegas pick, and I'll take Tampa in 6. I'll take Colorado in 7, which is what they want, so they can allocate the money on the books however they want.
Conn Smythe is always funny. I think you have Makar being a clear one. I think the Vasilevsky story would be incredible. And I think if he plays extremely well, especially if they get to his closeout game stats are insane.
Oh.
I think he could easily edge Kucherov in that. But right now, for Tampa Bay, Kucherov would be the betting line favorite for the Conn Smythe Trophy. We didn't even did we even mention Stamkos in this conversation? I think it's a realization he's not at the level of those other guys.
Yeah, that's right.
But he's still can score very big goals, timely goals.
Well, he's more than a point per game over the last 3 months.
Yep.
And it seems very pedestrian.
His run to 100 points was insane.
Yeah. Like what
He
he's
literally
done.
got 50 points in like 18, 19 games.
He's had maybe the best stretch of his professional career, and it
Yeah.
seems pedestrian compared to the rest of the guys in this series.
The other thing that's surprising about that is this entire run all started on Stamkos and a broken leg,
Yeah, way back when.
right? So it's not like this club is. Steve hasn't had to make it. It's been, and great ads to Nick Paul and these sorts of things, and I know that. But Stamkos, now you look at Stamkos, he looks like Butch Goring now. He looks like the guy that's, he's grizzled, he's 30 years old.
Is that his helmet you're looking at?
Well, I
or?
wish somebody would have the Butch Goring helmet
Little
still.
padded,
yeah, that would be beautiful.
Kind of like Bob Nystrom. Say that.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
He's in the thick of it. He's the captain. He's going to score some big goals.
Right.
But
he's not gonna score
quite-
all of them.
He's not going to score all of them anymore.
Yeah.
That's right. I got a question for you, and apologies if this catches you totally off guard. It was going to be something where I felt like we could even almost do a sidebar show on, but someone asked me this recently, and I had to really jog my brain, and I came up with two. Mark, I'll start with you. Give me one or two Stanley Cup finals that you put ahead of the rest and the ones that you've watched throughout the course of your fan career. Do you remember your first one that you ever watched?
Yeah,
real time.
Absolutely. So I started watching hockey in real time, the 1988 conference final, Montreal Canadiens and the Philadelphia Flyers. I remember Chelios catching Brian Propp with an elbow to the head. And I remember Propp's bucket coming off, and when he was on the ice, and just blood everywhere. And that's Hextall was mental, and there was fist fighting and everything else. To say the best ones, the ones I've had the most fun, 89 Calgary.
Yep.
Because the Flames were my team when I was a kid. So to have Landon McDonald score the winner coming out of the penalty box against Waugh was beautiful.
Only visiting team ever to win at the Forum.
And that was something I held on to, a legacy I held on to for a long, long, long time. Most entertaining. Jeepers. Like there's been, aside from ones from your youth, but you look at those through a different lens because, when you're a kid. I don't know.
Why don't you just mull that for me?
Yeah, I'd have to sit and think
Maddie,
about it.
when you think about your fan career, obviously being a Montreal Canadian fan, I don't know if last year's would stand the test of time.
Last
for you.
year's Stanley Cup final was miserable.
Yeah.
it felt like the Habs were drowning for 5 games.
Yes.
So the first one I ever watched would have been 2004, Carolina.
Good one.
Okay.
Carolina, Edmonton.
Okay, so
No.
that's 06.
Yeah.
Is that 06? Okay, my
That's
years
a
are all
7-game
off.
series. That's interesting. There's a lot of moving parts with that series.
I don't remember much of it because I was like 10 years old, and it was like my babysitter watched it, so I was like, oh, I'll watch hockey too. Why not? And that's kind of how I got into it. The most entertaining, it wasn't a very long series. I had a bunch of fun watching Washington Vegas a couple years ago.
Right.
Because I've always been kind of an Ovechkin guy, so for me that was really entertaining.
Did you have more fun watching the post game with the boys skating around the ice? Anybody who knows that reference?
Yeah.
Terrific.
What other ones were really entertaining? The two Pittsburgh and Detroit ones were great. The one went. Did they both go 7? One went 6.
No,
one
the
went
first
7.
one went 6.
And the second one went 7.
But the first one was also, Detroit shut them out in the first 2 games, so people are like, oh, this is kind of blah. But Pittsburgh came back well and actually spoiled the party at the Joe because they won Game 5 in triple overtime.
yeah.
Peter Sikora.
Oh, that's right.
And then Detroit had to go
Jeepers.
back on the road to win Game 6.
And then one, I don't really care for other franchise, but Chicago and Boston a couple years ago. Like that was, we saw Boston blew the lead in Game 6. The first game I think went to like double or triple overtime. Like it was a fun series.
I've got one.
Yeah.
And I just thought of it. Calgary, Tampa.
Yeah. 04?
04. So, and what's his name was, and I just had his name in my head. Damon Lankow was absolutely lights out. Scored the game winner in every series. He had the goal scored in Game 5. That's a goal. It gets, and like you can't tell me that it wasn't a goal. I know it was. You could see it plain as day. But they got a job. That was a good Calgary team that, kind of just coming out of that, Ken King interview where Ken's like, oh, jeepers, we're in real trouble out here. Every time the American dollar goes up a penny, we lose $100,000 type thing. And I liked Iginla too. Like he was, but that was a good Tampa Bay squad.
That was a really good Tampa Bay squad. So that's Martin St. Louis' coming out party. Wins the Hart Trophy that year. That series also featured a rare fight between two captains.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Iginla and LeCavalier.
LeCavalier, yeah.
Dave Andrewchuk winning.
Yes.
After such a long career, and
Yeah.
obviously had some great moments with the Maple Leafs. Yeah, that one was pretty good.
94 Canucks and Rangers too.
I got two, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
Is that the guarantee?
No, well, the
that came the previous
guarantee
round.
happened when they were down 3-2 against New Jersey.
Yeah.
So they had to go on the road to New Jersey and were down 2-0 in that game. And then Messier scores a hat trick in the third period alone.
Right. But Messier had told the New York Times,
"We will win."
yeah, we guarantee a win in Game 6.
I guarantee it.
Yeah, I
which was
guarantee it.
A la Joe Namath. And that was at a time where guarantees now are a little bit blasé, like people do it all the time.
Sure.
At that point, it was literally like Joe Namath Super Bowl III and Mark Messier.
Messier. That cemented his status though in New York. They get to the final, they win, but that was a back and forth 7-gamer. Kirk McLean played 1,000 games that year.
Yeah.
Like he played every minute, it seemed like.
So that is the one that I would immediately bring up because there are a lot of different storylines and there were a lot of different, the 1940, the Rangers, a lot of star power. The Canucks, I think a pretty good team, but not one that you would have expected to go to the final. I know, there were a couple of really good teams in the West. And then just sort of luck of the draw, they ended up going through. They go through Toronto in 5 games.
Yeah.
And then you get like the Rangers up 3-1, and then you get, a pretty dramatic comeback to be able to force it. And then you get a 3-2 Game 7.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive stuff with that one. The other one that I think probably it gets talked about in only one moment, and that is the Ray Bourque Cup. But the series itself between New Jersey and Colorado.
Yeah.
There's like a 10-year window where there's literally 3 teams who are going to win the cup. It's either going to be Colorado, Detroit, or New Jersey.
Sure.
And they sort of like take turns, with all due respect to Dallas, who was sort of in the mix too.
But sure.
Those were the 3 that you look at the beginning of any given season and say, okay, here we go. So, New Jersey sweeps Detroit in 95. Colorado wins in 96. Detroit wins in 97, 98. Dallas is there in 99.
Yeah.
And then you get New Jersey in 2000. Colorado in 2001, Detroit 2002. So really the stats bear that out. And this is a clash between, you've got Colorado, the President's Trophy winning team, with Ray Bourque and a lot of the powerhouses, Sakic and Forsberg. And then you get the defending champion, New Jersey Devils, who had beat Dallas the previous year.
Right. And they were a feared group, that Devils.
Very feared group.
Yeah.
One of those like, hey, no matter what, I don't know if it was that year or the next year that even the Leafs had them down 3-2.
Yeah.
And there was just, even if you're a Leaf fan, you're like, okay, well, they're not going to They're not going to be able to close out New Jersey. Sure. There's just no way.
Yeah.
And I just remember that series, and again, I was cheering for New Jersey quite a bit, but it had the unexpected, home ice advantage didn't mean a heck of a lot until the end because New Jersey actually wins Game 5 in Colorado.
Right.
Colorado comes back and lays one on New Jersey with an opportunity to win the Cups in Game 6.
That's right.
And then you get, I think 4-1 in Game 7, but the crowd at, I think it was probably called the Pepsi Center at that point.
Yeah.
Was unbelievable. And then, of course, you get the cap-off Ray Bourque moment, which is great. Those are kind of the 2 in my youth that I think back, and I was like, you know what? Even though I wasn't necessarily invested, because the ones that Detroit play in, I either love them or hate them, and I can't. There's when you're in it, you're just
that's hard to separate.
You can't.
I was miserable last year when the Habs made it to the final.
Like Detroit losing in 09 almost, to me, mitigates the 08 Cup, because now I can't really enjoy it as much, and that makes me sound greedy.
You're also the guy that gets mad when they don't go 16-3 in the playoffs. They only go 16-6.
Miffs me a little bit. A couple of other hockey-related notes. Bruce Cassidy to Las Vegas.
Holy crap.
Bruce Cassidy was out of a job for 6.5 days.
This is a deal. Mark my words, this is a deal in Vegas. I guarantee it. Bruce Cassidy is way underrated.
Great coach.
Unbelievable coach. He's never had a year where he's been below the top 5 defensive scoring teams. He's never been, and I could be wrong on that. Somebody's going to correct me. It's either 5 or 10. But he's never been below that threshold of either 5 or 10 in terms of the best defensive metric teams.
Right.
Every single year. On a Bruins, okay, you can't say it's easy to with Bergeron. That's a system. Bergeron is one guy, right? This is an underrated. Vegas is also very harsh. It's a very harsh environment. right? Like Gallant takes him to the final, bang.
DeBoer.
Pete DeBoer takes him to back-to-back conference finals or whatever it was. Boom, gone. Okay, you don't make after you don't make the playoffs. You don't make the playoffs once, bang, out. Like this is something like that sounds like something from the original Six.
Yeah.
Like you didn't win the Stanley Cup this year, you're out.
Yeah.
So I think Cassidy, I think that's a deal.
I think he immediately became the best candidate on the market, and I'm interested to see Boston evaluating the market and getting a lesser than coach that they fired, which I will never quite understand.
They can pick up Barry Trotz.
Yeah.
And Barry would have been the only one that I would kind of throw in that mix.
I think Trotz, I think he could step out, same sort of coach, same sort of philosophy, I would think. I think Trotz could step in there and they wouldn't lose a beat.
How about this? John Tortorella meeting with Philadelphia.
Okay.
That is everything I need.
Hold on a minute. More than even New York, this guy's personality and showcase deserves to be in Philadelphia.
Okay, so we'll go back to your point. If we were rewind the tape when we started this show, and you had mentioned something about, and I meant to write it down, but I didn't bring my pencil.
It was that enlightening.
It really was, because you had mentioned the point about, based on reputation or something to that effect. Like this Philadelphia Flyers iteration is not Tortorella.
No, not even close.
That style of play from the Flyers hasn't been a thing in 20 years.
I don't care about that. I just want the contention with the media.
I understand that.
That's all I want.
But don't you want, it doesn't have to be a Tortorella-style club in Philadelphia for it really to be successful?
Well, I think if you go with Tortorella, he would definitely have some say in some personnel moves for sure.
But I hope it's like, okay, let's bring in Frank the Animal Bialowas. Like, let's bring back guys. Let's go Goon Squad. I've said this for a long time. If I ever bought the Peterborough Petes, real quick, if I ever bought the Peterborough Petes, I'm interested in developing the kids as human beings first, for sure. We'd also be playing hockey. But I would go with 20 dudes that can mash. 20 guys that can skate, 20 guys that play hard every single night. We're getting 50 checks a night. People, and it's a copycat league.
So Mark Million would turn the Peterborough Petes into the Danbury Trashers. Like
without the nonsense.
Without the mafia connections and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, without finding the guys in the dumpsters and duffel bags of cash.
Oh, my Lord.
No, trust me. You'd come to see that.
I would. I don't want to come across like a Neanderthal, but my father would always tell me that, I forget the name of the coach. But again, he was a Oshawa General season ticket holder. Mm-hmm. And he said that there was a coach that they had in the 80s where if you were a fan, you got there during warm-ups because oftentimes
probably
there
Bill
was
LaForge.
Bill LaForge.
Yeah,
there's the name.
Sure, I guarantee it.
Bill LaForge.
Yeah.
It was you had to get there. The stands are packed for warm-up because you just never knew what was going to happen.
Billy LaForge was he was also a bit of a goon.
Seems a little crazy.
Yeah, like he refused to shake hands with teams after they lose in the playoffs. Like the guy's a bit of a sauce, but it was a beauty.
We got an email here, Matt.
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
You ready, Mark?
I don't know.
You've got mail.
Mm-hmm. Question from Paul C. Is Ryan Whitney or you guys responsible for the change in airport policies in Canada? So, the federal government, since Ryan Whitney came out with his video, coincidence or not, has decided to change a lot of the things that we talked about on last week's episode. So, whether it be vaccine mandates for domestic flights, whether it be the random COVID checks, this is what they said on the Spit and Chicklets podcast.
At one point, it'll be asked the Canadian Parliament.
Wit has reached Canadian political levels.
Imagine the bingo card. If at one point, it'll be asked the Canadian Parliament and be told, the Prime Minister will be told from another party to listen to Wit. Bombing in from Pearson Airport hell. I'd ride for Michael Barrett. I'll say that. I saw his Twitter. He's got 5 kids. So he's been to about 1,400 2-year-old birthday parties.
Michael Barrett just quote tweeted you, Wit, with a T-shirt that says "Listen to Wit." Already has the T-shirt made.
There
for
you go. Is it that crazy of an idea? Some people may say yes. In terms of me, I think you might want to listen to me. I'll say this though, not always.
So Michael Barrett, sorry to jump in there, an MP actually got up in the House of Commons and addressed the government saying, hey, are you finally going to listen to Wit? And now there's T-shirts and all this kind of stuff. The only thing I can tell you is from Mrs. M's perspective when I was telling this, because we talked about, I have a trip coming up. She was getting a little bit nervous, although I don't think domestic flights were hit as hard. It's still nice to have a little bit more assurances for that. I'm explaining to her the story because she's reading little captions and she's thought, what is this Wit, whatever. And then when I explained it to her, she could not believe, like in her mind, whether it's true or not, an American ex-hockey player podcaster has totally influenced the Canadian government. Yeah. There's no other way to say it.
Like, that's the most Canadian thing ever, isn't it?
Except he didn't. I don't think he did.
Well, is it just total coincidence?
Let me preface this by Spit and Chicklets merchandise.
Right here at the Capital PTBO.
Correct.
Pink Whitney tastes great.
Yes.
You've been anti this story from the get-go.
It's so stupid to me. Because it's a guy that flew private his whole career. Now he has to fly public and he's complaining. Like making fun of Pearson Airport hasn't been the thing to do for 20 years.
They lost his bags. Yep. Then they told him, okay, get back here at 5 a.m. the next day. We've got you on a flight. Okay, great. Make sure you get here. No, he had to be back at 5 a.m. for like an 8 a.m. flight. Yeah. He gets back 5 minutes early at 4:55. Oh, no, shh. You're not flying. You're not going out at 8 o'clock. You're actually going out at noon or whatever time it was. They never, the thing was
he couldn't catch the flight because they bumped him up.
Yeah, because they bumped him up. And now he can't catch the flight, can't get his bags. Like, holy jokes.
Are you
That's
saying
just called Tuesday at Pearson Airport?
That's not appropriate. Whether you're Ryan Whitney or
is there any
else.
way, Matt? Is there any way that you just simply don't believe that someone with that amount of influence, forget the fact that he's an ex-hockey player, because I think that puts it in a weird context, but This is somebody who has an extremely far-reaching audience, which is even included in Canada, and it becomes this social media pressure cooker that we've seen happen so many different times on so many different issues. Are you saying there wasn't somebody in an office somewhere in Ottawa who said, boy, this really needs to get our attention now because it's a PR nightmare?
I'm sure somebody said it. I think they would have been lifting it around this time anyways. They just lifted the masks in medical offices. That was lifting anyways last Saturday.
Yeah, but when you look at how Canada was treating international travel, it hadn't been comparable to the Western world. Like, it had been so far behind. So I'm wondering why now all of a sudden. And again, if this is
because everything else is lifting right now anyways.
Yeah. I think there's more influence than you think.
What's the optics, though?
Yeah.
The optics is that they're 100% Ryan Whitney has 400,000 followers on Spit and Chicklets.
Yeah.
We better do something. Like, I hope that's not the case, because if that is the case, you haven't been listening for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you're going to be...
It took a famous person to be like in trouble at Pearson to get everything. Because people have been waiting for a long time for a lot of... And listen, before the haters come on, I've been very responsible and I've supported most... I've grinned and bared it even when I didn't like some of the restrictions that were put in and they didn't make any sense to me. I didn't make a lot of noise.
Sure.
But the fact that we were so far reversed on some of the other countries that we align ourselves with ideologically always, scratched me as a little bit strange. I think there is the possibility that a celebrity comes here, creates enough of a fuss, and people cave to social media. We see companies do it all the time where someone... swears at a baseball game and then gets fired because there's a bunch of haters.
This is the Canadian government, though, so I hope what you're saying is wrong. I'm with Latour on. I hope that they already had this. No, I know, but I hope that this was already in play, and Witt is just a weird coincidence. Sidebar on this: if somebody else in the House of Commons had said it, like if it was Michelle Frary as an example.
Who's the shadow tourism minister.
Tourism minister, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If she says it, I guarantee the trolls would be out. It would be like the violent vitriol would be all out, stay in your lane, all this other stuff. Michael Barrett says it, and he's cool. He must be cool because he listened to Witt. Okay. The guy's he's a decent NHL hockey player who has an above average podcast, not unlike ourselves.
Minus the NHL player part.
So to answer Paul C's question, then it may have been us who influenced the government.
I think
one or the other.
The Peterborough Century 21 Lakers, they start the season with a win. what was it? A note came out Saturday that, oh, by the way, we have a game tomorrow, and then they played in Coburg.
Yeah.
Can we just unpack that for a minute? And
But before that, don't forget to watch the Century 21 Lakers immediately following.
Well, I'm
this
super excited
every Thursday.
I'm super excited that they're back, and you can see all season long on your TV, Peterborough, Lindsay.
Yeah.
What a strange, and you have to think, so this is a sport we always talk about, growing lacrosse. Can we make other markets as passionate about lacrosse as Peterborough and Six Nations? Those are sort of the two models in the league. You get seasons shut down pretty without much fuss for a couple of years, and then they played sort of that tournament that Peterborough wasn't involved in. So by and large in the MSL, you're coming back after a ridiculous hiatus.
Yeah.
Ridiculous from the standpoint of like just the sheer time that you've had to take off.
Yeah.
This has to be worst case scenario when you get this legal conundrum and then the season gets postponed. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, we can play? Okay, cool. We'll give you 1 day notice. How do they expect people to be that far in the loop?
Yeah, I would think that this is probably, I feel like as much as, from the OLA standpoint, this is very hard, I think, to kind of manage. You've got 7 clubs. You probably have, and I don't speak for the OLA, the following will be the personal opinion of Mark Million. But I think you probably have some clubs that are just on the line financially.
Totally.
And you've got some that are probably doing just fine and others that are hurting bad. So I would imagine this was probably already put in the works a week ago. Listen, Peterborough, you're going to play in Kodiak. Here's what's going to happen. If we can't get Owen Sound and Brampton together, we're going to play a 5-team league. You're going to start Sunday in Coburg. To let Mike Davies have the story 2:00 on Saturday, that's probably a little bit tough, sure. But you wouldn't notice if that had been a Peterborough home date, you would have got 4 or 5 days notice for that. The MSL would not have allowed Peterborough on 24 hours notice to put a game in the arena because to Peterborough getting 3,000 seats, that means something. No disrespect to Coburg, but Coburg's rocking 400.
Yeah.
And it's just the market.
There hasn't been a senior Lakers game at the PMC in 1,112 days because last time they had a season, it was at the Evinrude Center.
That's right.
Or Healthy Planet Arena now.
So we're getting down to it tonight.
Getting down to the nitty-gritty.
Beautiful.
I'm curious what the atmosphere will be. And do you think there'll be 3,000 people? I just feel like there's a lot of people who are walking around the streets who heard the postponement and thought, okay, well, whatever. And I don't feel like, and I don't think it's the Lakers' fault. I think it's the league's fault. I just don't think that information has been put in. There's senior level hockey or lacrosse fans who are walking around and probably have no clue.
I don't know.
What the teams are playing.
One thing that we are very thankful, and the people that come into the store, I've spoke with Lenny Powers, I spoke with Pete Dalladay, people that are on the inside here, they've got vested interest in this thing. Len said that he was very, very happy with the response that the community gave in respect to sponsorships. The lacrosse crowd seems to be a very well-connected, and they travel well, to Peterborough, certainly. So I think this is going to be, I think it's still going to be a success. We're not talking about 2004 Man Cup Lakers, out of the gate where we're getting 4,100, but it'll happen. And the Man Cup's in the East this year. Which is big for us.
Give me some perspective on what the Peterborough Lakers mean to the Peterborough sporting community. Me and Matt have totally a different vantage point because we were raised in a different area, and Brooklyn was something, but you'd never be like in high school being like, oh, I'm going to go watch Brooklyn tonight at Iroquois Pad 1. Yeah. That would never happen, ever.
Yeah.
Maybe if they win a championship, you'd read about it in the Whippy this week and be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But growing up, what does the Lakers team mean?
So for me, 90s Lakers lacrosse was relatively difficult. Ted Higgins certainly had a lot to do with resurrecting that program in the 70s and the 80s and all the way through the late 80s. The Maulers, the James Gang, the Senior Lakers. This year's the 40th anniversary of 82 Minto and Man Cups. The Maulers won 3 to close out the 80s. it's special. You've had, and I might be the wrong guy to ask this because I feel like you've had the Wayne Gretzky's, the Gordie Howes, the Maurice Richards of this game play in your own barn for 20 years. So you always knew it was special, and it kind of ebb and flow. So 80s was on the high, 90s it came down, and you're back into the 2000s now, and it's it feels like, unfortunately, that it's not as appreciated outside of Peterborough as it probably should be, considering it's Canada's national game. There are certainly pockets that are strong, and we're fortunate to live in one.
Is that because of the circus that is sort of the higher up organization levels?
I think they're...
Because that's the only takeaway that I have.
I know.
Is that there's not strong enough infrastructure leading and promoting these teams that it's never going to catch on to the level that most of us think it could, because it is a very marketable sport.
I'd hate to say that you're right, but I think you might. Because it's always been that way. It's always felt like it's been major series lacrosse, and to the people that love it, it's been everything. But I mean, even from us at this level, we just take for granted that you could play it. You could watch an NLL lineup. A couple of years ago was stronger, certainly. But you could have had a Peterborough versus the National Lacrosse League All-Star game. Professional Lacrosse Association, the field loop in the States, it's the same. In Peterborough, it's thick. Same as it is in BC. There's certain pockets out there that are huge. It's unfortunate we don't get its due, but here in Peterborough, it's well celebrated. It's just unfortunate not everywhere else.
In Ontario, I know Peterborough, Six Nations, and Niagara has a really good hotbed for lacrosse as well. And other than those three, I couldn't tell you. Like, I went to Durham Turf Dog games in Oshawa, and they had 50 people.
The doggies.
I know,
the old Sea-Lax, come on.
Like Brampton's had a very strong program for a long time. For a lot of that first decade of the 2000s, Peterborough and Brampton fought it out every single year.
Yep.
You could pretty well mail it in. It's going to come down to a 7-game series as to who's coming out of the East to win the man.
Well, 4 Man Cups in a row is the goal for the Peterborough Century 21 Lakers this year. I'm going to be very excited. I'm rooting them on. It's something that has not been achieved since, I believe, the early 1950s.
Correct.
So this isn't something that happens very much. And even though it's been delayed and sort of interrupted, if you will, through no fault of, really anybody, I feel like it'll catch on soon and the momentum will be going. I'm just interested to see who's going to be in the building and see if the crowd is going to be what we're accustomed to.
I hope it is.
Me too. The U.S. Open golf tournament is, getting underway. Rory McIlroy. He's back, baby.
Yeah.
He's the betting line favorite, according to Bodog.
Yeah.
And Matt, you've been just singing his praises all week long.
I'm a Rory guy. I think he needs to win a major. It's been a while. But
deceivingly long time.
Like 2014, I think. Runner-up.
Everyone wanted to anoint the next Tiger.
They did.
And then in appreciation for what Tiger did and how hard it is to win, now you get those next ones going years and years and years without winning majors. Jordan Spieth would be another one who probably hasn't won in 5 or 6 years at this point.
Because Rory won, I think his first one in 2011, 2 in 2012, and then 1 in 2014, and then hasn't won one since. Runner-up at the Masters this year, thanks to a really good Sunday. But other than that, he hasn't sniffed one.
Coming off a big win at the Canadian Open.
Yeah.
That was electric to watch.
Which he said felt like a major.
Yeah.
Let's just make it the 5th major.
Cool.
Why not?
They used to call it the 5th major.
They did, yeah.
Well, it didn't really mean anything. But
No.
Well, that's where Tiger had his big coming out party, right?
The Tiger bunker shot.
Yeah, the Tiger
exactly.
bunker shot, the slam was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That was unbelievable.
So betting line favorites right now, you got Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, and Scotty Scheffler. But I always like the U.S. Open, believe it or not. I know there's tradition with some of the other ones. Maybe that goes back a little bit further. But for me, the U.S. Open, based on how hard the courses are and how you don't usually see winners. I don't like winners at -10, -11.
No.
I like them scrapping for pars.
That's right.
That's my opinion. That's the way I've always liked watching golf.
Play the course even, absolutely, yeah.
And that's why the U.S. Open has always sort of gravitated to for me anyways. Quickly, Live thoughts. Live has been everywhere.
Yeah.
We talked about it a bit on last week's program, and now that we've seen it, again, PGA people coming out and saying, wow, it's a shotgun 3-round thing, like whatever, and maybe some of these old geezers can't really compete with the young guys anymore, so they're taking the $40 million and walking. I don't know. Like, it feels like it's been a little bit more contentious, more players being put on the spot for the Saudi background kind of stuff.
And the questions, some of the, like, Phil is getting bombed.
Phil's the biggest one.
That's right. Like the woman from NPR that asked them about, like, how do you explain to your kids at night that these guys funded Osama bin Laden? Okay. Do you want to talk about golf? Like, I understand. I mean, we all understand what the history is there, but it's black clouded the event for sure.
Yeah.
I liked what McIlroy had to say. I thought that was on board. You know, like a lot of these guys are on the other side of their career. Okay, you want to take the life-changing money? Okay, fine, whatever. You know, Dustin Johnson saying that about life-changing money. Jeepers, the guy's won $70+ million on the tour.
So you could
That's life-changing, and your father-in-law is Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
That's life-changing.
This seems like between Live and PGA, you can have glory or you can have money. You don't get both. I mean, you get a lot of money in the PGA still, but you don't get Saudi money.
Does the Live Golf Tour at some point not just have a massive imploding moment where players morally are going to have to come back to the other side? Like, okay, here's an example. So Saudi Arabia decides to remove the women's right to vote. Mm-hmm. You know, they have some, like,
hypothetically speaking,
because women they were just allowed to drive like 4 years ago or something. So not exactly progressive as folks.
No.
Or you have an American that travels there who is part of the LGBTQ community, and the Saudis jail them.
Yeah.
The golfers now have to be made accountable for whatever discretions that the West doesn't enjoy about the Saudi Arabian people. That's a very difficult, and you know what the Saudi guys are going to say? The Prince dudes are going to be, no, you see, Phil, right here in line 74 of our contract, you still owe me 3 years. We paid you $200 million. You're going to have to eat this one. Sorry, you're staying. That's tough.
That is tough. John Rahm made some great points, too, about how people shouldn't play the sport of golf purely for money. There is prestige. And so he said winning the U.S. Open matters a lot. Like, I don't know what winning a live golf tournament, if that means anything.
Yeah, you're going to win some tournament in Portland?
Okay, I get it. And I know the questions are going to keep coming. And they have to answer the questions. If you take the money, you got to answer the questions.
Yep.
But are we picking and choosing where we're going that hard against people? Like, what's the difference between, I'll tag in LeBron James just because he's such a big figure. Why isn't it at every LeBron James press conference? It's not, you're an endorsement deal with Nike, who does a lot of business out of China, ABC, D. Like, that should happen every single press conference, should it not? If we're playing by the same, if we're holding every athlete to a moral standard, shouldn't they always have to answer that type of question?
Maybe because he's not physically there. I don't know.
He's in a movie.
I know. That's the only thing I can think of, though, is that these guys are going over to Saudi Arabia.
But they weren't in Saudi Arabia. They were in London or wherever it was.
This was a firefight in the 90s, though. Like, Kathy Lee Gifford championed a lot of this stuff when she brought out a line of clothing that she found out was made, I think, in like Sri Lanka or Bangladesh back in the early 90s, and did everything in her power to have that product removed. Nike, Michael had the same firestorm. He had the same problems in the early 90s with, how do you sleep at night knowing that, 12-year-old kids are making your sneakers that are, people then are shooting each other in New York City to get them. So that, when it's new and it's fresh, and the other thing is there's no likable characters there for the PGA. Like, the people, they don't necessarily care. I think if you had somebody that was endearing, in some way.
Phil's legendary, but he's not endearing.
That's right. He's not endearing.
He's been contentious.
He's very much so.
Yeah.
And they know he's a good soundbite because he's unfiltered.
I've liked old school Phil. Like, he's done the social media thing well, I think, to this point. But up until then, I did not like him at all. Felt like he was a bit of a clown.
Sure.
Gentlemen, do we even have time for fair or foul? We're running up against this. Has been
we
great.
got 10 minutes.
Boy, oh boy.
Give us 2.
Okay, give me. Can we do a little fair or foul here?
Let's give the intro.
Just because you got the crowd.
Now, to be fair.
To be fair.
To be fair.
Foul!
All right, fair or foul. Matt, you can start with this one. J. Cole's stint in the Canadian Elite Basketball League.
Fair. 4 games, career high of 6 points. Got the Scarborough Shooting Stars tens of thousands of followers on social media, and now everybody knows what the Canadian Elite Basketball League is. Fair all day.
Quickly, in 15 seconds for most of our audience, especially on your TV, can you explain J. Cole and the Canadian Elite Basketball League?
Yeah.
J. Cole is a rapper, quite a good one, I must say.
40 years old.
Yep, the Canadian Elite Basketball League was started up in 2018. There's, I believe, 7 or 8 teams in it now across Canada.
J. Cole's
we just talked about the MSL like not knowing what to do running their league. The CEBL is doing the opposite, and everybody knows.
J. Cole has a career average of 1.5 points.
Is that right?
He just put up a six.
He put up a 6-piece. Foul.
Fair or foul, 2030 Winter Olympics in Vancouver and Whistler. It sounds like they might be able to go ahead. It would be actually the first Indigenous-led bid, which I think is pretty cool. Everyone's trying to get on board. Would you want to see the Olympics come back to Canada?
I'm a big proponent of the Olympics should only go to certain cities. I think it should go to certain venues, and I think that there should be a revenue sharing for those that can't, because I do not believe in giving it to rewarding countries like Rio de Janeiro and China and Russia and these sorts of things.
We're going back to the live debate here.
Well, no, we're not going back to the live debate in such a way that, in Rio de Janeiro, they put up all these things and they just fired all the poor people into the streets and killed them all. But no, anyways, that's hyperbole.
How do you sleep at night watching that?
Zika virus, too.
Right.
Yeah.
So to get back to it, of course. The Indigenous, because that is one time that we do celebrate our nation as a supporter of Indigenous art and that sort of thing. We revel in that at the world stage. So absolutely, and the venues are already there. So that you can't be hamstrung financially in a day and age where that's all we worry about now is should we put $1 billion into celebrating somebody swimming fast, running fast.
They didn't have snow last time.
That's why I've noticed this is called Vancouver and Whistler.
Yeah.
Whistler's being able to wiggle its way into the main billing here.
Yeah. I want Montreal to have a Winter Olympics because I think it's the most snow out of any major city in North America. Give it to them.
Yeah, and ironically, they held the Summer Olympics.
Yeah, correct. And what a mess.
All right, it is time now for the Way Back Wednesday quiz. We're going to be quick with this one. It's going to be fairly bullet form. The Stanley Cup Final is your category.
Ooh, okay.
All right, gentlemen. Are you ready? Are you ready? Who is the first player in hockey history to win an Olympic gold medal and a Stanley Cup?
Ooh, the first.
In the same year.
Jeepers.
Same year, I should say that.
Oh.
Is the year 1980?
Yes.
It's number 6, New York Islanders, Ken Morrow.
Ken Morrow is my guess.
Kenny Morrow is it. I thought you'd fall for when the pros started going on.
I know. That's what I was
Yzerman
thinking.
and Shanahan.
Right. No.
Yeah.
Kenny Morrow.
Ironically, you brought up this Stanley Cup Final a little bit earlier, so let's see how well you know it. What Tampa Bay Lightning player scored the Stanley Cup winning goal in 2004 against the Calgary Flames?
He scored the winner?
Yeah. Could be wrong. 2-1, I think, in Game 7.
Brad Richards.
Oh, jeepers.
Conn Smythe winner, too?
He did win the Conn Smythe.
Yeah, he did. No, I'm going to say it is. Oh, jeepers. No, it's not him either.
Oh, no.
Dave Andrechuk. It's not him.
It's not Davey.
Is it Ruslan Fedotenko?
It is Ruslan Fedotenko. Where did you pull that
Who
from?
comment?
Jeremy Biden in the comments.
Come on.
I won't take the point for it.
Come
That's okay.
on, Jer. What a
Jer,
beauty.
all over it.
It's okay.
Jerry, you missed it. We talked about Vancouver, and he's from Vancouver.
Yeah, I know. He's a good Western
He
boy.
cried himself to sleep after the Rangers won that
He
one.
did.
The Stanley Cup Final is the topic of conversation here on the Way Back Wednesday quiz. What year was the Stanley Cup first awarded? What year was the Stanley Cup first awarded?
1903?
The Montreal AAAs.
Oh, he's getting grand.
He's doing the thing.
Lord Stanley of Preston's Chalice was first awarded in 1892
That old.
to the Montreal AAAs.
My research says 1893.
Well, it's 1892, 93.
Oh, it's the 92-93 season.
92-93 season.
I don't think we can give him the points.
No, you go over there in our
I knew
lending.
it was in the store somewhere.
We have it in our
Express is
lending
on the wall.
library here. You can go over to the official guide and record book, and it'll show 1892-93.
Matt, by the way, you said 1903. That would be the first World Series. So you were...
Who won the
coming around.
1915 World Series, Jordan?
Oh, God.
1950. I want to see
Boston Red Sox.
Probably. Okay, that's the other question. I'll look it up.
What team advanced to the Stanley Cup Finals in 68, 69, and 70, but lost all the series?
We have a poster of this in the store that features Peterborough stronghold Bill Plager. That's the St. Louis Blues, coached by Scott Bowman, also Peterborough alumni.
Got swept in all those series, too.
Correct.
I think.
Won 0 games.
So
Glenn Hall.
The Habs in 68 and 69, and then the Bruins, the Bobby Orr famous goal in 1970.
Correct.
The Red Sox did beat the Phillies in
I knew it.
1915.
Yeah. We'll do a World Series slot machine coming up here soon.
Yeah.
All right, last but not least here. What player holds the record for most career goals in the Stanley Cup Final? 34. 34 goals. That's a great playoff
as a career.
Let alone just exclusive to the final.
34 goals in the Stanley Cup Final.
Is it Guy Lafleur?
The Flower. No.
Yeah, I feel like the options aren't so... It's Maurice Richard.
Is it?
The Rocket.
Oh.
Yeah, Le Rocket. So, well, I mean,
In
obviously...
58 games.
58 games, sure. But the Rocket was, I mean, that was a time and place. The 5 straight, the Richard Riot.
Nobody ever talks about, like, it's funny in the World Series, people will say, like, oh, Mickey Mantle has the most home runs in the World Series with 18, and they have all these World Series records. You don't really do that for the Stanley Cup Final.
No.
Maybe that's because there was only the World Series for a while. Like, there was no playoffs leading up to it.
I think baseball, I think the World Series is a little bit more hollowed ground because, you know, it's such a marathon to get there, and then you still got to win the championship series.
Was the Cup Final 7 games when he was in the finals all the time?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was shorter for some reason.
Jean Beliveau, most points, by the way.
Yeah.
I think 62.
Yeah.
I'll take
That sounds right.
Yeah, the most goal, but it shouldn't surprise you that most of the goal leaders are Montreal Canadiens.
Sure. They were there all the time.
The first one to not be a Montreal Canadian was actually Ted Lindsay. 19.
Oh, sure.
Detroit played in a few back in the day. Mm-hmm. Well, this was a lot of fun. This was a great episode. So we're going to go around the horn here. Quickly, we make our Stanley Cup prediction. I said earlier, I think Colorado. I think it happens in 6 games. That's me, Mark Million.
I think Tampa Bay goes in 6 games, and I think this is the slaying of the dragon. This one would be the most impressive Stanley Cup win, in my opinion, in recent memory. I'd really have to think about, they're the Goliath, Colorado, I feel like, and strangely enough, but I think they're the Goliath in this scenario. Tampa in 6.
Easily the best team they've played in the finals in the last 3 years because Dallas and Montreal, come on. Tampa Bay in 7, I think they make, I think,
Wow.
I want to say they come back from like 3-2 down.
Oh,
and like
jeepers.
they're just,
Tampa Bay goes on the road and wins a Game 7, which
and with an Andre Vasilevsky shutout because that's
that
what he does.
used to be a rare thing, but we've seen Pittsburgh do it. We saw the Boston Bruins do it.
That's
we saw
right.
St. Louis do it. So it's definitely possible. This has been the Capital PTBO Sports Show for Mark Million and producer Maddie. I'm Jordan Mercier. You can check us out on Your TV, Peterborough and Lindsay, and of course anytime wherever you do your downloading on Spotify or Apple, produced by MNC Podcast Productions. We will talk again next week.